I want to talk about depression. They say that disappointment is the salt of life, and that the big disappointments in life can be indeed earth-shaking, but they sometimes can serve as a wake-up call. However, the steady rain of quiet disappointments, of little hurts, has less to recommend itself and is potentially even more dangerous to our mental health, our psychological well-being. With the big disappointments in life, and I've had a few, the best advice I have given myself is not to add insult to injury. It's bad enough that I've been disappointed, or that I took a turn life gave me in a hard way. But it's even worse if I then add to that, that perceived injury, the insult of following it with endless regret, and worst of all, bitterness. Bitterness is a real life killer. The slam dunk of a major disappointment is one thing, but the subtle undermining of our self-confidence brought on by the endless underscoring, inscribing of what happened to us is so much worse. Going over and over and over it in our mind, all that time recording karma, digging a deeper and deeper groove into our karmic mind. In other words, the karma of a kick in the face from the outside world is one thing, but the karma accumulation that we add to that event by endlessly reviewing and underlining what happened to us adds up to far more karma than the original kick in the face. Not to mention the bitterness and regrets and complaining, all that stuff. Perhaps we can't avoid what life brings us in the way of disappointments. But how we take it and what we do with it is totally up to us. If I think about it for even a short time, it's usually clear to me that it's best not to throw good luck after bad and further invest my life energy in regretting what happened to me. Best just to suck it up and walk on. Anyway, that's my view. And these little slights and subtle disappointments, they can leach from us, from our life, more than big disappointments. They're big brothers. They literally eat us alive if we let them. And again, my point is that it's all up to us. And this has been, learning this lesson, a tough one. It did not take me too long to grasp from the Buddhists that expectations are never our friend. They cause us to hope on the future rather than depend on the present. And that word hope is another whole thing entirely. I was raised on hopes and dreams, so learning about the failure of hope usually to really help took a long, long time for me to digest and to understand. It was this very clear admonition, repeated so often by many of the great Buddhist masters, the siddhas, that occurs again and again in the Buddhist canon, that finally got my attention and led me to taking the warning on hopes and fears more seriously. And here's how it reads. This is how the Buddhist text reads. It just simply says, don't prolong the past. Don't invite the future. That takes care of the past and the future. Now, I knew at first read, when I first read that phrase, that it held something important for me because it struck at the heart before I could ignore it. Not prolonging the past, well, that much I could kind of figure out. Don't dwell on the past over much. I get it. But this other phrase about not inviting the future, not having hope, that kind of went against my beliefs. I've been like a huge fan of hope and an even greater dreamer. I have dreamed. But gradually, like creeping age, I became aware that almost all of my minor, these daily and endless disappointments, these little hurts, came from expectations and nowhere else. And yeah, from my hopes, each and every hope, each and every one. If I looked closely, I could see that I would even have a tiny time of mourning over every little disappointment. And my days can be full of them. And they can be linked like one to one, like a string of firecrackers going off one after the other, each sucking some little sense from whatever life energy I have that day. What began in the morning, as a fresh me when the sun came up, was too soon hamstrung by a series of quiet disappointments, like gradually letting the air out of my tires. Pretty soon I found I was deflated and often not even aware enough to know why or how this happened. I should also mention that depression is the stepchild of disappointment. So beware of these small disappointments, because how we take them is really up to us. And they just can eat away at our self-confidence, our sense of well-being, like some kind of mental cancer. But I have learned about this, or at least I am learning. I'm learning through awareness training to catch disappointments early on, when they first peek their gnarly little heads into my life, causing me to react, to go into reaction. And reaction is the key word here. How I react to what I perceive as disappointing. Of course, that's all based on hope and expectations. My hopes, my expectations. When the Buddhists tell me that hope and fear are not my friends, they are speaking of our reactions. Not that we are to have no dreams or no hopes. It's our reactions that we can control. The Buddhists go on to point out that if we will work on becoming more aware, we can catch ourselves in the moments of disappointment, when we're disappointed, and actually observe our reaction. Watch the energy running out of our life through our expectations that, not being met, or our biases that must be acknowledged, that, we wanted it to turn out this way, but it didn't, and then we're hurt by it. And this awareness approach it works with all sizes of disappointments, from the really huge ones, like the loss of a loved one or something, on down to those that barely get our attention, but they still function without fail. Let me give you an example. Not long ago, I got a phone call in the night from someone who was touched by something I wrote, and who was in collaboration with other people who probably share some of the same training and viewpoints that I do. She told me she would be contacting me that night by email, and even invited me to come and visit their group and stay at their center. And this was Dharma related, so that's my favorite stuff. And of course, I was thrilled with the idea of speaking with these folks, in particular because it was on subjects of the greatest interest to me. Well, that email that she said she would send, and any other kind of feedback, never came. What a great opportunity, perfectly made for me to practice what I'm preaching here about disappointment, and I did. Of course, I have thought about the call a few times, but not as I would have years ago, when I would deeply have regretted the proximity to having hopes fulfilled and then dashed. You get the idea? So instead, I just noted it and put it on hold. We have to trust in our own karma and fate. Our own will come to us, and I'm reminded of this great poem by John Burroughs called Waiting. And, I'll just tell it to you here as a way of ending this. It's by John Burroughs. It's called Waiting. Serene, I hold my hands and wait, nor care for wind or tide or sea. I rave no more against time or fate, for lo, my own shall come to me. I stay my haste, I make delays, for what avails this eager pace? I stand amid eternal ways, and what is mine shall know my face. Asleep, awake, by night or day, the friends I seek are seeking me. No wind can drive my bark astray, nor change the tide of destiny. What matter if I stand alone? I wait with joy the coming years. My heart shall reap where it has sown, and garner up its fruit of tears. The waters know their own, and draw the brook that springs in yonder height. So flows the good with equal law unto the soul of pure delight. The stars come nightly to the sky, the tidal wave unto the sea. Nor time, nor space, nor deep, nor high can keep my own away from me.